few weeks ago, I redrafted the Cam Newton draft, the 2011 draft, and if you haven't listened to that podcast, you should. It's a pretty good one. It's available on the same feed as where you found this one, and I thought, hey, why not try to do another power ranking? I'm not going to redraft the whole thing because that would once again take like an entire podcast to do. But instead, I decided I'm going to power rank the QBs taken with the number one overall pick in the NFL draft in the past 20 years. And there were 13 quarterbacks taken with the honor, of getting to be the first one to shake the commissioner's hand and look awkwardly into the camera and say, I made it, maybe. So we're going to start at the bottom of the barrel here. I think anyone on this planet would be shocked that I selected Jamarcus Russell to be the worst quarterback taken with the first overall pick. Jamarcus Russell only lasted 31 games in the league, and he honestly came in as quickly as he left the NFL. I mean, he was touted as this quarterback with legendary arm strength. He was the quarterback who threw on his knees for 70 yards. Well, if this was a Harlem Globetrotters tryout, Jamarcus Russell would have been a sensational addition to the Oakland Raiders, but instead, he ended his career in Oakland with just 7 wins. Yep. 7 wins. That's pretty sweet for the fans of the Black Hole who honestly feel like all of their joy has been sucked into one. He ended his career with over 4,000 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions in 3 seasons. That sounds more like a below average quarterback in the NFL today, and Jamarcus Russell mustered up those numbers all the way back in like 2007. All right, so moving on to not so much better is David Carr. I mean, his career lasted much longer than Jamarcus Russell. He was drafted by the Texans, and he was 23-56 overall in his career. He was a Texans starter from 2002 to 2006, holding the legendary honor, which I would be surprised if it ever gets beat, is a 76 sack season. Yes, 76 sacks in a season. He is not a defensive end, as we remember. He is a quarterback, and his body took a beating basically of someone just driving back and forth into a stop sign over and over and over. And believe it or not, the trauma of imagining someone is going to beat the living crap out of you every 2 seconds never made it David Carr recover as a starter in this league, and he eventually became a journeyman and a destined backup. He did win a Super Bowl, though, with those Giants with his second stint with the G-Men. So I guess it wasn't all terrible for David Carr. And now his brother is in the NFL as well, and he already, I think, has a better career than David ever did. But I don't think Derek has the PTSD that David had to endure. A quarterback whose career is summarized by injuries that were more constant than the highs of when he actually played was Sam Bradford, who ranks number 11 on this list. He was known for being a very good quarterback when he was on the field, but he also was very injured and injured and injured and injured. He was drafted by the Rams with the first overall pick, and he went on to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he had a very average to slightly above average career, and a lot of teams had faith in him that he just needed a great situation where he wouldn't get hurt, as he was traded from the Rams to the Eagles to the Vikings to the Cardinals. What a fun career for Sam Bradford. He was as brittle as a biscuit, and for the most part, he had one great year where he definitely had a good completion percentage. He was like Drew Brees minus the substance. I don't know if that's a compliment at all. I am starting to think it is not a compliment at all. All right, so number 10 on this list is Baker Mayfield. It is way too early to give up on Baker after a bad second year with a new offensive line. We can only hope to see Baker on the rise as this list goes on. He showed a lot of promise in his rookie year. But it seems that this once deemed savior of the Browns is now just an attention magnet for now. And we can only hope that Baker will take a step in year 3 to show why he was taken first, which shocked the world really when it happened. But apparently a lot of other teams felt that he had this potential too, as it was rumored that teams wanted to trade up for him, such as the Seahawks and the Patriots wanted the first pick to be Baker Mayfield. And I know it's Colin Cowherd's favorite punching bag, but I think we could see Baker easily go way up on this list with just a few more years of showing the promise he showed in year 1. So this is going to come as kind of a shock, and I was a little split on between who to put over the other with 9 and 10. Another Oklahoma product, Kyler Murray, I have ranked as number 9, the Rookie of the Year in 2009. This is based on the idea that he will take a step forward that we imagined we would see with Baker Mayfield, with DeAndre Hopkins now added to that Arizona wide receiver core and the air raid offense that Cliff Kingsbury will look to add onto from last year. I think Kyler Murray has a better chance to succeed than Baker in the sense that he is much more mobile and more athletic, but that also means that his career could be more gimmicky than what Baker Mayfield could do. And the only reason I rank Kyler Murray higher than Baker is really, even though Baker's been in the league longer, I like the potential of what I expected to see in Baker's second year. I am now shifting to what I expect to see in Kyler's sophomore year with this next jump. And we're going to move on to the 8th ranked quarterback on this list, and that is Jameis Winston. Yep, Mr. 30 for 30. We may not have seen the last of Jameis. Maybe security cameras haven't either at most places that sell crab legs, but he shows a lot of promise. But it all comes down to cutting the turnovers. He has flashed on the NFL field the way Favre played, but weirdly enough, he may be way more reckless than Brett Favre ever was. And that is why he decided to get his eyes surgically repaired so he could quote-unquote see better. But he has one of the weirdest off-season training regimens of any quarterback I've ever seen, and I don't think I've ever seen him really look in shape. And that's another concern. But he is very talented arm-wise, and he could definitely sling it for over 5,000 yards every year as long as his coach also doesn't mind that comes with the opportunity to maybe be the next Mr. 40 for 40. Jared Goff is number 7, Mr. Safe Guy, basically. He is tied solely to Sean McVay's offense because when Jeff Fisher was his quarterback in this first year, he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks ever taken in the league. And we have this weird thing with Jared Goff where we're constantly going up and down about him. Do you not remember from potential bust to Super Bowl bound to what? Now he's average. Maybe. I mean, let's face it, this is going to be a very interesting year for Jared Goff because it looks like all of Sean McVay's offense might have caught up to him. Or maybe it's just that Jared Goff is making the offense look worse. And now that we lost Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks, who were basically never on the field anyway, how's it going to look when they're never on the field? That's something we have to keep in mind with Jared Goff. I wouldn't be surprised if I did this list next year and I had him lower and I had Baker and I had Kyler higher. Jameis might stay in the same spot because now he's a backup. All right, 6th on this list, Cam Newton. Say what you like about Cam Newton, but Cam Newton truly has had a pretty impressive career with the pressures of being the number 1 overall pick with the Carolina Panthers. He had an MVP season. He's a very overall solid NFL quarterback. He's been a franchise quarterback for years. He was one dive away from potentially having a Super Bowl ring. He's been very fun, very flashy. I would say that he has been overall pretty good. Just not as good as our next guy on this list. Next on this list is the once sensational, once heavily criticized, once really just took the world by storm and has been in most Madden games. It's Michael Vick here at the number 5 spot. Michael Vick showed extreme promise, extreme flash, extreme everything. The difference between him and Cam Newton is really that, I don't think we're going to talk about Cam Newton in the same way we talked about Michael Vick. Michael Vick was truly the pioneer, I believe, for what Cam Newton was today. He really had an insane impact on the NFL when he was in his prime. And once he had the issues off the field and came back into the league, he had another fantastic year for the Eagles. And he truly brought a spark to the NFL that made a generation truly, really, it changed the quarterback position as a whole and what most people conceptualized it to be. And that is why I have him ranked above Cam Newton. Not only, I think he was a better quarterback than Cam Newton was. I think Cam Newton is a very good quarterback. There's nothing against Cam Newton. But Michael Vick, I don't think anyone, it's not really an argument that I think Cam Newton is not as good as Michael Vick. This might be an argument, though. Ranked ahead of him is Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is the face of the Lions franchise. He has played for many years, and he has had his job much longer than the quarterbacks I have mentioned before him. And honestly, Matthew Stafford, very rarely injured. He never had a true wide receiver or a wide receiver too. He is the definition, I think, of what you look up in the dictionary of what you get out of a number 1 overall pick in the draft. Very solid, very low. Very rarely is there a low with him. It's mostly highs. And I think any franchise that gets a Matthew Stafford for 10, 11, 12 years is very blessed. Because let's face it, it is not as easy as just going, I got my number 1 pick, so let's just move on. And we could just move in the direction with the quarterback we got, as we saw with David Carr and Jamarcus Russell. All right, next on the list, we got Alex Smith. It took a long time, but once the arrival of Jim Harbaugh into Alex Smith's life, he made Alex Smith utilized in the way that he was truly meant to play. He will never outgun you. He will never outrun you, but he will never lose the game for you. 94, 66, and 1 as a starter, and almost a career 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. That record I just stated, though, is kind of deceiving because actually, ever since he was introduced to Harbaugh, he never produced a losing season ever again in his career. Even with Washington last year, he was 6-4. And every coach that has had him has sung nothing but his praises. And if you want to learn a little more about Alex Smith, you should definitely watch that ESPN documentary called Project 11. That was it really is an insane documentary. I mean, Alex Smith, it only makes him like one of the more likable guys you ever meet in your entire life. All right, next on the list is Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer, the SoCal guy. He is a great quarterback. For the most part, that was stuck in terrible situations. The Bengals have been a dumpster fire of a franchise for the later half of the past 50 years. And Palmer really showed them light. He was a thrilling NFL quarterback, and he lit it up with Chad Johnson and Hushmanzada. And then after getting traded to Oakland, which was, once again, Oakland, you really just are really suffering. My God. The quarterback position has not been fun for you. He got traded to Arizona, and under Arians, he once again had an explosive offense. He was a great talent that was burdened of higher success, but the organizations and injuries, that being an MCL tear in 2006, an elbow tear in 2008, and an ACL tear again in 2014, really ruined what was a very underrated career, I think, which is why I have him ranked 3rd. This is going to be a very angry response, I think. I have Eli Manning ranked 2nd in quarterbacks taken with the number 1 overall pick. Now, I know what you can say. Eli Manning's a 2-time Super Bowl champ. He is a good quarterback that helped a franchise win 2 Super Bowls and beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in both of them. He is a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. I would only argue that he is not the most talented quarterback on this list, and I am not going to list these quarterbacks based on their career. It is on the talent that they showed in the NFL and for how long they showed it, I guess. But Eli Manning is a very good quarterback. He is a borderline Hall of Famer, if not a sneak-in Hall of Famer based on his career. But I also believe that Eli Manning doesn't deserve to be number 1 because we don't look at Eli Manning and think he was one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in our lifetime. And that is why I am transitioning it to the quarterback that was prophesized to do it all, but left the game a little too early. That is right. I have selected Andrew Luck as the number 1 quarterback taken with the number 1 pick in the past 20 years. Andrew Luck, the next LOA that left too soon. He was the most gifted football player on this list that won with pure talent and really nothing else. Eli Manning won because he had great defenses surrounding him that gave him the opportunity to shine. When was the last time Andrew Luck had a top anything in the league when he played? He had T.Y. Hilton as his best player for the majority of his career. And T.Y. Hilton is just fine. But that defense was terrible. That offensive line was terrible. He left the NFL so early because he got banged up all the time because his offensive line couldn't block for him. He sustained so many injuries, including a lacerated kidney for this game. But the level that we never got to see him play at was at a higher. He was already at a higher level than any of the quarterbacks I placed on this list. He had 86 career regular season games, and he produced a 53-33 record. He had 171 passing touchdowns and trailed only Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre for the most in their first 100 starts of a quarterback's career. And one could only assume that Andrew Luck was not in his second act yet. And then that second act, especially with the way the league is diluting and becoming more even, that Andrew Luck could one day have held the Lombardi Trophy and would have cemented himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks we have ever seen. But he was definitely one of the best quarterbacks that played in the time in which he did. And for that reason, I have Andrew Luck taken with the number one overall pick of the number one overall picks in the past 20 years for quarterbacks. And if any GM was on the board and had to pick from the list I picked from, you could argue Michael Vick, but if you knew what happened to him off the field, you wouldn't have probably wanted to take him. And you probably wouldn't have wanted to take Carson Palmer because of his injuries, and Eli Manning just doesn't stand out in that way. So that is why I selected Andrew Luck as the quarterback on this list.